The judiciary has long been considered the last line of defense against anarchy. And with India heading towards lawlessness as a result of vast power being held in the hands of a few in the midst of a corrupt system, this defense is under fire as well. It has its champions, of course. One such person's activism to hold on to this last bastion of justice, coming up on Unraveling India. Continuing the elitist legacy of the British era, the Indian Supreme Court works only 193 days a year. And continuing British antipathy toward law and order in India, there are only 18 judges per million people compared to 102 in the US and 147 in China. As a result, over 30 million cases are pending in Indian courts. At the current rate, it will take more than 300 years to clear these cases. And to make matters worse, according to a former Supreme Court justice, at least 50% of the higher judiciary is corrupt. But there are honest judges and lawyers holding the system accountable. One of them is Prince Lenin. He is a lawyer based in Lucknow, the capital of India's largest state, Uttar Pradesh. He founded the nonprofit organization We the People to help the poor seek justice using public interest litigation. We talked to Prince to learn about his work and the state of justice in India today.
So you have raised women's issues also. Now it's no secret that the law enforcement is one of the most corrupt branches of the Indian government. Police are most likely to exploit people and than to help them. So you filed a public interest litigation on behalf of a minor girl who was raped and murdered in a police station. You went to the court to get her justice and to avoid such instances in the future. So you filed a public interest litigation seeking a direction from the court to constitute a wing headed by a female police officers. So please tell us more about that.
Deepak, in a few instances, there were reports wherein innocent girls were being raped within the police premises. Can you believe police is there meant to save the people from the hands of the criminals? And here in such cases, it was Nighasan, where a 16-year-old girl was being raped and then literally hanged within the police station premises, showing it to be a suicide. So, and another incident took up in Badayung. It was also widespread and it was being noticed across the globe. And I had to file a PIL seeking CBI investigation. And court passed orders to constitute CBI investigation. Thereafter, there was another incident where on a highway, mother and a daughter were being raped in front of their father by the criminals. So that case also was brought before the court by me, and court had passed an order for CBI investigation into that matter, and later on the culprits were being apprehended. One of the things which came forward in such instances and which has been repeatedly coming up is that after commission of a rape over a woman or a girl, it's the girl who has to roam here and there, and for justice she has to cry for justice after such inhuman suffering. And the authorities in many cases have been sitting with tight hands and not bothering about the pain of the victims. So I had filed a petition seeking a helpline number, because in many cases those victims were being thrown out of the police stations instead of their complaint being addressed, and they were being given for some psychological treatment, because in many cases the victim had ended up their life and the culprits were roaming freely. So this is the pathetic situation which compelled me to seek a helpline for the rape victims, whereupon if their complaint is being not addressed by the police authorities, then they can lodge their complaint on that helpline. My further relief was that in such cases, the investigating officer must be a female investigating officers, and such cases should be monitored by a high level female police officer, and immediate counseling must be provided to the victim, because in number of cases victim have committed suicide. So, and the action of the government has been highly hostile. They have been passing orders rightly on mostly on paperwork, just like, and the ground reality of such victims is very poor. Still, I'm saying, still in state of UP, there are repeated instances of girls being harassed, victimized, and many of them are ending up their lives because their complaints go unattended. So this is the very sorry state of affairs which had compelled me to file this petition for the help of these rape victims.
Now I want to talk about the recent developments in India. In the state of Uttar Pradesh, where you are from, the government dropped all criminal cases against all politicians across all political parties. I mean, it is really scary that politicians just decided that they are above the law and free to do whatever they want. What do you think about it?
This exposes the intentions, the thinking, what's going on for that particular class of people which is meant to perform its duties for the people in the name of this democratic setup. They who are corrupt, they who do criminal acts, they want to save their own colleagues. It's not for the people. They by virtue of legislation, they have opined that the cases which are pending against the politicians should be taken back. It's very unfortunate. Why there is you are raising two classes of people here in India, one a political class and other an ordinary class. It's a question of debate, and it's a question of concern for each and every person. Here you are separating people. If we'll say that you are an ordinary citizen, and if you do anything that is criminal, you will be taken up to task, you will be going to prison, you will be serving your punishment. And if you belong to a political class, then you are free. There is nothing, no action, government action against you, and even if there any action comes, they are going to recall it, compound it. They will not press the prosecution against any political class of person. So it exposes the thinking, it exposes how political class here in India is working against the interest of the people. And with these sorts of working, you cannot be hopeful that this corruption is going to walk out from the lives of the people of India. Here the lives of people of India will be full of all sorts of difficulties, pain and troubles on account of these corrupt practices which are being performing on day-to-day basis by so many political class people.
Very interesting point that there are two classes of people in India. The upper caste consists of all politicians, bureaucrats and judges, and those who can buy them, and everybody else is a lower caste. American historian Will Durant observed the similar power dynamics during the British rule. British were truly upper caste who enjoyed prosperity at the expense of everybody else. But we were too divided among us to understand that then and even now. So we talked a little bit about the Indian judiciary system, but now I want to talk more about it, including the corruption, the rampant corruption. I came across a very informative article by Abhinav Chandrachud, published in Economical and Political Weekly. It is titled "The Insulation of India's Constitutional Judiciary." And I will read an excerpt from the article. The Indian judiciary is insulated from vibrant checks and balances. Its democratic insulation arises from its use of contempt law to restrict criticism and its permissive view on libelous speech directed against other public officials, and controversially, the use of English as official language of the courts. Its political insulation arises from its ability to determine its own composition and the inability of the political establishment to effectively remove allegedly tainted members of the judiciary. Both these forms of insulation embolden the judiciary on the one hand, while directly and indirectly restricting participation on the other, and further threaten to exacerbate the severe problems of Indian judicial administration, delay and corruption in India. So there are three main points here. First, Indian judiciary is not accountable to the people. Second, you can't criticize it, despite of being corrupt to the core. And third, it conducts its business in English, which 90% of Indians, don't understand. I don't know what kind of democracy, we have. So there is no participation in Indian higher judiciary. For example, in the US, before being appointed as a judge, they face the nation during public hearings. They are asked questions and judged by the entire nation. Indian judiciary resists, any accountability in the name of the independence. I think these claims of judicial independence are cover for bureaucratic privilege and avoiding accountability. So if you take the recent incident where 4 Supreme Court judges revolted against the Chief Justice of India, they raised a claim of transparency, but what they really wanted was transparency for them and not for the people. So what do you think about it?
Deepak, on point of this Indian judicial system and its accountability towards the people, the recent incident which you have cited about the 4 Supreme Court judges who have pointed out the working of the Chief Justice of India, one thing definitely reflects that something or the other thing is going on within the judiciary, and the person who is the superior most authority is exercising his duties in such a manner to extend benefit or something, some sort of favor to a particular class of people, as it has been raised by those 4 judges. And it's not a hidden truth, because these things have been happening in the past years also. If you remember the days of emergency within India, wherein Indira Gandhi's government was functional, and the judges who had opposed those emergencies and passed orders against the wishes of the government, later on a judge who was superseded by 5 judges and was made Chief Justice of the India. So there is a hold and there is an interference of government within the judicial system, because if we'll see that at the root level, wherein magisterial courts or these session courts are there, their appointments are being made through competitive exams. And when you come to appellate courts like High Court and the Supreme Courts, their appointments are made upon the recommendations of the Chief Justice and the senior most judges. That is called the collegium system. Here in this system, judge appoint judge. This system is very debatable. Lots of questions are being raised on several appointments, wherein it has been now noticed that only judge's relative is being you be a son of a judge, you be a brother of a judge, daughter of a judge, daughter-in-law of a judge, and you are being placed within the judiciary. You are being easily elevated to a High Court or the Supreme Court judge, and these things play a very prominent part on in which government you are being appointed, and then you are extending your favor to that government. This thing is being pointed out and raised upon by these 4 Supreme Court judges. That's what they are pointing out, that the some important matters of public importance and which are raising concern against the government are being placed before those judges who are being appointed within the regime of this judge, and these things are being pointed out by those judges who are being appointed in the regime of previous government. So these things are now coming in public domain, that somewhere or the other this sort of appointment where a judge is being appointed by another judge without there being any competitive exam or any theoretical or practical exam, and purely on the basis of recommendation of 2 or 3 people. So these things are being questioned, and now many people are raising their voice and calling for a fair and transparent selection procedure, make a Indian judicial services sort of exam, because if you need a administrative officer, you have an IAS exam, Indian Administrative Services. For police, you need a police officer, you have to go through an Indian police services. Now imagine a DGP, Director General of Police, has to select a IPS officer. You forget about the exam, then he will consult a few officers and he appoints a son of a police officer as a police officer. So then what's the use of such an appointment? And here in judiciary, without there being any proper exam or without there being any selection procedure, two or three people consult each other, they will refer the names before a collegium system, and that collegium system passes the names of those person, and those names goes to the government, and upon the clearance of the government, oath is being administered, and they become the High Court and Supreme Court judges. And later on, such disputes are being raised, and they themselves have started raising fingers on the integrity of each and other. So things are now being exposed within the domain of people, that such sort of a selection of a system of judges at such higher level is now no more inspiring confidence of the people at large.
And it's not only about the credibility of the judiciary, but the entire democracy of India. I want to point out two things here. India has the competitive exams to select bureaucrats and lower court judges. There have been many instances in the past where exams have been completely rigged. And honestly, I don't trust these judges either, because where were they when 3 million cases were piling up in Indian courts? And it is said that it will take 400 years to clear all these cases. Former Supreme Court Justice Kaju said that 50% of higher judiciary in India is corrupt. So again, the question is, where were these judges when corruption was being spread to higher judiciary? And you are completely right in saying that because these were appointed during the previous administration, their interests have been threatened during this current administration. Honestly, and I went to visit so many of these courts and government offices after my aunt's unfortunate death on the streets of India, to see for myself how this corrupt, like how did we reach to this point, lowest point in Indian democracy, and how these courts and government offices really function. And I have seen with my open eyes that the level of corruption, they openly talk about accepting and giving bribes. And I believe that people have completely lost or almost lost their faith in Indian justice system. So what do you think needs to be done to make Indian judiciary work for the people?
Deepak, I'll like to correct you that the entire faith of the people has not lost, but it has been shaken. Those incidents have not snatched away the confidence and of the people within the judiciary, but yes, it has shaken the credibility and the quality which is supposed to be there. So coming to the point that what is to be done, in my opinion, if you'll seek my opinion, if there are exams for other competitive things like IAS and IPS, there should be an Indian Judicial Services exams wherein any person who is having a law degree or adequate legal background as per the norms which are being framed for such exams appears in that exams, goes through some tests, he's being interviewed upon, and later on he's being given appointment for High Courts or Supreme Court. And whereas what we are seeing was merely only recommendations are being made of few names, and those names who are being within the ambit of knowledge of few people of some, you can say, elite class people who are close to the governments or to those judicial functionaries, and they get elevated, their names are being placed before the collegium, and the collegium takes up the names, and later on they get appointed, and they themselves later on come up before the people's, raising their voices, talking about their inner conscience and their, you can say, uh, enlightenment which is being showered upon them when they are going through all these things. So but the truth is, these things have been prevalent within the Indian judicial system for long, for ages. There are several instances wherein honest judges have been superseded, though the judges who have been working for the people, they have been taken up to task in form of administrative exercises, by transferring them, by placing them with jurisdiction of different nature of cases apart from public interest cases, and such things keep on going within the judicial system. So if we talk about this judicial system, we need a selection procedure as that of IAS and IPS officers. Later on we can expect that something is going to improve within the judicial system.
No, that's really unfortunate. So, what is your opinion about this huge backlog of 30 million cases, and what can be done to deliver justice in timely manner?
For backlog, there are many factors which are responsible. Infrastructure is not there. If at grassroots level, if you go to those district courts and magisterial courts, you will see a magistrate or a judge working under pathetic conditions. They don't even have fans and electricity, proper electricity to work upon, and the conditions which are being provided to them is not suited as per their jobs. And many of the cases, there are lack of proper appointments, vacancies are existing. If you talk about high courts and Supreme Court, the bench strength is not up to mark. There are so many vacancies still existing within the judicial system. So there are many factors which are responsible for this backlog of and pendency of cases.
One last thing I can't resist to talk about is the section 377 of the Indian Penal Code that makes homosexuality a criminal offense in India. The law was made by British in 1861. Homosexuality was not an offense in India before that. And if you talk about the Indian Constitution that got into effect after the independence of 1947, the Article 15 of the Indian Constitution prohibits discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. So it's very clear that British made these laws to divide Indians. Most of the laws, I would say, were made to divide Indians on the lines of religion and caste. So why can't we rule these British-made laws unconstitutional? Why are we following these laws? I honestly think this is a sign of intellectual slavery on our part.
Deepak, it's a very important question, because this country has been ruled up by this British colonial system, and these British rulers have been imposing all their laws upon the Indians, and we after independence are still adhering to the laws which have been provided by the Britishers only, be it Indian Penal Code or Code of Criminal Procedure or Evidence Act, Civil Procedure Code. All laws are still existing which were prevalent at the time of Britishers. So the debate is there within India that why not we are going to amend those laws, why not we are going to give a thought upon re-adjudicating all those things, because as you pointed out, 377 section, now a lot of debate is going on with across the globe, where 377 is no more a punishment and people are being allowed homosexuality, and people are marrying each other. And here also now, here in India, after the judgment of the Delhi High Court, and the apex court. Now the law is getting a little bit relaxed on this topic, but still we need some adjudication by the lawmakers. It's for them to decide, it's for them to make and provide law on this subject. And why we are still adhering to all those laws which were prevalent at the time of British Empire and being a colony of it. We should start redefining the entire law, because you see at that time rash and negligent driving was made it was a bailable offense. Why? Because at that time no Indian was having a motor car. It was for the British people who were having a motor car. So if a person died in a accident on account of their rash and negligent driving, it has to be registered as a bailable offense, because it was for their benefiting. Now people here in India are dying on account of road accident, rash driving, and a particular class of people are being getting benefit of that purpose. Why you are taking away a life of a person on account of your act? So you are equally liable for culpable homicide. You are committing a homicide and you are claiming it as an accident. You are having a car and a steering, and you know it's what speed it can run, and it can crush a person's life. So you are well aware that if you are carrying a gun and firing at a person and you are crushing over your Mercedes or your BMW over a person, and then he is losing his life, the law is differentiating on account of those British provisions. So these things have to be taken care of. And the fine part, if you'll see that in large number of cases the fine which was being imposed by the court was 100 rupees and 200 rupees in those eras of 1800 and 1900, and now 100 rupees having no significance. So those fine and all those things need to be taken care of. That now we need to revive our judicial system, our laws, each and everything. We should come out as a fresh nation, and we should give our people proper laws, and we should find ways to protect the lives of the people, make this country corruption free, make this country make the institutions accountable towards the people, not towards the politicians. Here all efforts are being placed for political class. You have already noted that how legislation is being passed that politicians cases should end up, they should not be further prosecuted. So these things itself expose how the political class is working for the people within the India.
No, that truly makes sense, and wow, we have covered a lot of things here, and thank you again, Prince, for speaking with us. I appreciate the work you have been doing through your organization called We the People, that helps needy people without any monetary benefits in return. And I would say keep up the good work, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So that was it for today. See you next time. Thank you.
We are sorry to tell our viewers that, due to his continuous activism against corruption on behalf of ordinary citizens, Lenin's family has been attacked by Uttar Pradesh police. On June 3, 2018, police entered his parents' home and beat and abused his 78-year-old father, mother, and sister. After trying to videotape the incident, Prince's sister was dragged away by a male police officer, abused, and locked up. No action has yet been taken against these officers. This is the state to which Mahatma Gandhi's India has devolved.
तर ह्या होत्या कल्पना सरोजजी आपल्याबरोबर मुंबई भारतातून. अनरॅव्हलिंग इंडियासाठी मी आपला होस्ट दीपक बिडवाई. धन्यवाद.